Welcome to the Uplift, where we are uplifting our lives, uplifting each other, and uplifting our communities together. Thank you for joining myself, Sai Herrera, and Tessa Savala here, two women, two attorneys, doing it our way, and inviting you here each week to share in on the stories, advice, and life lessons we've picked up along our journeys that keep us uplifted, and that will hopefully do the very same thing for you. Now buckle in and let's get ready to be uplifted.
Hello, everyone. As always, I'm Tessa, and I am joined by the lovely and amazing and accomplished and just all around fabulous Sai.
Good morning. Hi, Tessa. I'm so excited to be with you.
I'm so excited to chat with you today. I recently had my mom visiting, and that made me think about perfectionism, right? Like, I have the habit of trying to be more perfect than is humanly possible when my mom's around. And I'm sure this is like based on horrible, like childhood trauma stuff. But like usually we've talked about this before, like when I have people over, I usually make sure there's one thing that's askew because that kind of like is my way of nixing my perfectionism, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that gets all thrown out the window when the
When
when
Mama
my
comes into
mom
town.
visits. Yeah. And it's
Okay.
just how perfection just kind of like messes you up mentally, right? Like you set yourself up so that nothing is ever going to be good enough. And it's like everywhere around us, right? I was accidentally watched a show on our queue on regular like cable television, and there were all these commercials, and all the commercials seemed to be about perfectionism, right? Like, how
Mm.
can you get your dishes so sparkling clean that it'll defeat every other dish that you've ever washed before? Or take this medication and your life will be perfect, except for,
Yeah.
like this list of,
All the possible
side
side effects
effects.
that it.
Yeah, that sound worse than the actual condition itself, but
Right,
you know,
right.
or it's, a gym membership, or it's a new
Mm-hmm.
supplement. And I'm like, we are just bombarded by this idea of
I can't watch
perfectionism.
commercials. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
And I find that way about social media too, because I'm like, okay, I
Mm.
know that that's so airbrushed and edited that that's not actual human being anymore.
Right, right.
And it is
But
like
yet it
how
creeps in though too. I mean, you've already seen
so
the image,
much,
so
right? And
that's
so
your
you think,
consciousness, but not your subconsciousness. So,
how do we deal with it? Like, how do we normalize just being normal? Because no
um,
human is perfect, right? Like, I often use perfect responding to people, not because of perfectionism, but because that's like the default response in Swedish, and it's just like stuck with me through English.
mm.
But how do we get around it? I don't think it seems reasonable to just like, let's stop watching all commercial television, let's stop watching all advertisements, let's stop doing social media, let's just, stop everything. That's not within the realm of reason either.
That sounds tempting, but yeah, you're probably
It
right.
does, right? Like, I too would like to live in some cabin in the mountains that's like totally
I could
deplugged
get
from
there,
everything.
yeah. At least for a little while.
Right?
Yeah, yeah. It's such an interesting framing of perfection too, because I feel like we also have this weird, I don't know if you ever watched The Take on YouTube, but I love it because they talk about the way they deconstruct the way that, different character types are portrayed in TV and media. And one of them is the like type A, neurotic, perfectionist woman, which of course it's a woman, right?
Of course.
Of course. And it's just really interesting when I see that person because I mean, first of all, she's usually not the main character. She's usually like the person who you don't want to be that like that, you know what I mean? Like where it's like, here's this other person who's more fun. And so that's always interesting to me that's the messaging behind it. But then there's also this there's also like almost this acceptance, right? That like that there's a
Mhm.
lot of people like that, and why is that the case? And I think it's probably a mix of so many things, right? But of course we're socialized like everything else, um, to be perfect. I mean, we're socialized to always have the right answer in school. We're socialized to always, impress everybody with what we're wearing and please I mean, this is very much perfectionism slash people pleasing in my mind because
Oh,
in my mind
yeah.
there is no perfect. There actually is no perfect. Like, and I'm so grateful that I found that out young in my life, but I realized when people were trying to pull me all these different ways, I was like, I can't please everyone. There's
Yeah.
no way. There's no way to really do it. So then I was like, well, forget it. Like I don't have to, I'll just do what I want. But it's one of those things where you get it from all sides and angles and from the very beginning. I mean, it's just a strange thing to reflect on because, obviously you want children to learn skills, you want people to learn skills, you want them to learn how to do things, a right way or a certain way. But where's that line exist where, it all becomes too much or where we are holding ourselves to some kind of standard that's really unreasonable for human existence or it changes too with every culture. I mean, and it's just an interesting thing to think about because I feel like it could be something very different for every person. Like for
Mhm.
some people, it might feel great, to do certain things a certain way every time. And for other people, it might be, you know what? I'm going to do as much as I can today, and tomorrow, who knows where I will be in that
Right.
regard, and for other people, I mean, having any, you know, stringent standards is too much. And I think, it's kind of based a little bit on all of our trauma. Like everyone has like a different trauma story in my mind, and sometimes we're reacting to that. It just makes me think about like, a rebellious teenager, like they rebel against the thing that they're not supposed to do, that they're not allowed to do. And it's the same thing with this. It's like, why? Where is this coming from? And yes, everything gets enforced too at different levels in the media, in all of the media, right? And even within our circles where people reinforce things. But I also think it's probably a very individual situation as well, I imagine.
As you were talking, I was thinking, it's not only individual, but I think it's down
Mhm.
to like the actual thing itself, right? Like I am
Mm,
really good with my clients to say, I
mhm.
don't know the answer, I will find it.
Yeah.
Whereas at home, when my mom's visiting, it is somehow I think there should be 48 hours in a single day, and I should be able to, like use a toothbrush to clean some smudge I
Mm,
see on a baseboard,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like it,
The different standards and expectations, interpersonal relationship side.
yeah,
And then,
right?
yeah, and even like culturally and hierarchy and all of the like, there's so many interesting dynamics where it could totally change. I could see that.
And, I think it's how do we learn to maybe recognize it and when it becomes a problem?
Mm,
Or even it's accepting the fact that it could be a problem, right? Like, especially in our career choice, right? Like, as lawyers, even though we're practicing non-traditional forms of law, we still have that innate, we
mhm.
have to know everything,
Yes,
we have to solve
figure it out.
everything,
Yeah.
and we have to also
Oh,
work 100
man.
hours a week, right?
The problem you just made me realize that problem solving is another form of people pleasing.
So
Oh,
I guess
so
that's the question. Are we
good.
are we bringing perfectionism on
Mhm,
ourselves, or are
mm.
we like so bombarded by it that we just kind of accept that that's how it should be?
It's funny because I was definitely talking about this yesterday with my therapist and thinking about how I feel like I have to solve the problems because
Mm.
I don't think anyone else is going to, or they're not equipped to in the way that I am, or I just have access to things or experience with things that maybe the people that I love or the people I want to help they just don't. And so I feel like I have to. It's not even like, "Oh, well, I'm trying to do it because I don't want other people to do it," or, it's not that. I feel like if somebody else were there coming to do it, I'd be like, "Yeah, go for it." I just can't see that happening. And so it's just so interesting to think about that as an extension of people pleasing because I'm trying so hard myself on my personal journey, to really be mindful at least of where I'm putting my energy first and to not, allow everyone in the world's needs and problems to be mine and to for them to be first before mine. And it's really hard for me. It's really hard for me because I guess I don't know, because I'm a helper, I guess. And I've just been conditioned to be a people pleaser, I think. And it's really tough to not jump to the rescue for me. Um,
And
yeah.
when you're saying that, I'm like, wow, have we got to the place where being helpful,
Hmm.
I mean, like helpful without maybe the negative impact on ourselves that people pleasing can. So just like, a healthy way of being helpful. Have we gotten to
Yeah.
the point where that's now like a bad thing?
I don't know. It's a thin line,
It's
right? And
weird.
and
Yeah.
it's the same with perfectionism. It seems that, there it's just like anything else. It's like, I don't know, like eating. You have to eat, but you have to think about healthy ways to do it. Or you have to, exercise, but you have to think about healthy ways to do it versus harmful ways. I mean, it's the same thing. It's like you have to engage with people and hear their problems and maybe be helpful at times, but maybe not all the time. And you have to find that like thin line that makes sense and that keeps you healthy in the process. And I think that's the most difficult thing because you can't, just like you said with social media and everything, you can't just disengage entirely. That would be the easiest, black and white answer. You can't do that. You need relationships, you need people, and people do need help, and there are people to help you when you need it. So it gets really difficult. It's the same thing with perfectionism. It's like sometimes you do need to do things correctly. that's that's okay. Um, but I think the test or one of the tests that comes to my mind would be something in the order of like, is this negatively impacting your mental health and wellness? Is
Hmm.
it is it impacting your emotional wellness? Is it making you feel bad about yourself? Is it making your relationship worse? Because you're not being honest with one another. When you were speaking about being perfect for mom, it made me think about for me, it made me think about honesty, where, and I don't know why, but I might be thinking about it in a whole different context, but it makes me think like when people are trying to impress other people in a way, are they being themselves or not? And that's one of the things I think in general that I try to hold on to in relationships is like, and something that really like you have helped reinforce over the years, it's like if people don't want you there or they don't want you to be that person that you are, like why would you want to be with them? Why would you want to be around them? Or
Hmm.
why would you want to, why should you have to change yourself or present yourself differently for different people? And I value that because being your true authentic self in every setting is so wonderful. And for me, it's a practice in liberation. It's a practice in, just being free. And I've come to believe that, the people who really love you or who belong in your life, they will love you because of that, not in spite of it. And so so that to me is something I hold on to when I'm when I'm just wanting to reach out for perfectionism, or reaching out even more so for, like, trying to impress people, or something to that effect. Um, I found that being, like, really just authentic and honest, if you will, about who I am and being myself is also interesting. I'm an interesting person, I think, and so that's it. If it's not interesting enough for people, then it's okay. They're not my people.
You are absolutely interesting. And the way you explained it made me think of whether or not we are prioritizing these expectations
Mm,
rather than accepting that we're, I think, all trying to do our best. And
mhm,
sometimes our best on one day or in 1 hour looks different than our best in a different day
right,
and a different
right.
hour.
Yes.
And accepting that we are not robots might be a good thing.
Mhm. Absolutely. The human experience. I'm gonna, like, trademark I'm gonna trademark that, because it's gonna become a thing soon enough.
Yeah,
The
it
human
reminds me also of
experience.
this thing I read this week from the great mind Adam Grant from the Wharton
Mhm.
School. And he said we in the United States over prioritize hard work when we
Yes.
should be prioritizing great ethics, right? Like
Ooh,
just because you
ethics.
show up every day and you are timely and you work hard from 8 to 5 doesn't mean necessarily you have the greatest ethics, right? Like the work
Oh,
you're doing
yeah.
that time might involve, a bunch of, let's go bribery or being somebody who works in politics. Obviously, bribery is the first thing that comes to my
That's
mind.
the first thing you think of. I was thinking as a working class, like, you're firing people left and right, just horrible working conditions you're creating, trying to save every penny. Yeah.
Right, and I think that's probably more accurate for the real world, right? Like,
Mhm.
you have these expectations that people are their hard work as
Mm.
opposed to their, you
They
know
are their hard work.
yeah,
Just that is so powerful. They are their hard work. Oh, man.
but it also sounds, like, so, like, puritanical, like,
Mhm.
American to me, right? Like, you're gonna work hard, everything's be great, but we've gotten to the point where I don't where I 100% agree with Adam Grant that hard work or being in an office during certain time periods isn't what it's all about, right? It's like, are you doing the right thing? Are you doing it with respect for all the stakeholders around
Mm.
you and for yourself? And are you doing it because there's like a purpose and makes you, it fulfills you, whatever that purpose might be, right? It doesn't have to be like some noble pursuit. It could just be that your purpose is that you want to work in X
Making
field.
making this the best company in XYZ ever, or
Right.
whatever. It could be anything. But ethics, I like that, because for me it sounds like, something I always think about it in workplace settings is like, if in a profit setting, are you putting profit over people, or people over profit? And it's always,
Hmm.
the former, but in the United States. But I wish it were the latter, right? Like, I wish that we cared about people first. And that's really, I think that's really the shift. And whatever you call it, I love calling it ethics, because maybe that speaks to our puritanical, like, roots. Ethics is in there, damn it, and we will hold on to that part
Yeah.
instead. That's fine. I don't care what it takes, but
However, we get there.
however we get there, whichever road we take, I want to get there. And it's funny, you just made me think about something I seen on puritanical values, because I watched a little segment that talked about just, like, native traditions, and they were talking about how different they are than the puritanical values of our colonizers. And one of the things that they talked about was, the very much, like, puritanical idea of, sex and relationships. And they were saying in native cultures, like, they would just call it a trial marriage. And so, young people were, like, encouraged to, like, try it out, go shack up, I guess, and see how that goes. And they were encouraged, to have sex and to experiment in those ways so that they would know what it would be like to be in marriage. And it's just, I'm saying this because it just like, it kind of blew my mind where I was just like, oh my God, everything that we know, everything that we think is, it really does come from this one cultural perspective. And everything else that we might have known is is gone, like there's no remnant of it almost. We are really just like we are in this other value system. And so it's just being aware that there are other ways to think. Like instead of putting profit over people all the time, maybe we could explore something different. And for me anyways, it was like, wow, I can challenge all of those things and know that it doesn't mean when we talk about ethics that there's only one thing that's ethical even. Like I feel like that's something that's really hard is that I don't know, we're supposed to be this incredible multicultural, place in the world. But honestly, it feels like we're really just all being kind of shoved into this one narrow, idea of what it is to be an American, frankly, right? Like make lots of money, maybe be an entrepreneur, maybe like, but make all the money, and do whatever you have to do to get there. And it's just not about people. It really is about we have this incredible big profit motive that isn't everything. I mean, even in healthcare, that's why I do not-for-profit healthcare work because I don't agree. I disagree. And so I don't, all of that to be said that it helped me feel like I don't know that and maybe that's strange that I need this, but it helped me feel like, oh, there's legitimacy in the way that I think differently, and the way that I have a different value system than the one that's prevailing in my country anyways.
And I am optimistic in thinking that it's changing. It's slow, but we're
Yeah.
getting there.
Yeah.
And we're seeing good works by big companies to get there. I mean, not great over the weekend, where I think a lot of or several major diversity C-suite people were replaced.
Mm,
And, I think that's probably, I'm hoping, just the natural course of corporate events as opposed to a change in having diversity C-suite people.
mm,
But I do think we're changing, right? Like, I think that idea of trickle down that overtook stakeholder economy before it is waning because it didn't work. And we've seen that it didn't work. So we're, swinging. So there's it reminds me of this quote. I think it's Winston Churchill. I'm probably gonna butcher it, but it's something like, "You can count on Americans to try everything and then eventually get the right answer, but they're gonna try everything
mm.
else before they get to that answer."
Right, right.
And I kind of feel like that's sometimes where we are, right? Like, "Oh, we're gonna do this, and it's gonna be great, and then we're gonna change." And I think we're
Mm,
slowly getting to the point, at least I like to think, that it's no longer change in kind of this reactionary change that has to do with the business or the process or a lifestyle. And it's slowly becoming a change where we're becoming a little more thoughtful about those choices and how those choices impact people. And maybe, just maybe, this was a good thing from information flying around so quickly because now we know the bad stuff more quickly, right? Like,
yeah.
but are we all willing to make that change, right? Like, obviously, there's still a lot of corporations who
Mm,
prefer their shareholders over their
yeah.
stakeholders.
And that's another place to really talk about perfectionism, right? Like in these workplaces where you're expected to hit these numbers, do these things exactly right, please every customer. I mean, I don't
Hmm.
know. Sometimes I look around and think like, what are we doing? Like, what are we even doing? Like, as a society, just like, what actually are we doing? It seems so simple when it's like, okay, we need a chair. Somebody makes a chair, but
Yep.
now it's gotten into this place where it's like, I mean, we have these strange, like, even digital products. digital security. I mean, it's just so we're such in a different space now where things do not seem they're not simple in those ways anymore. But we built these whole, corporate structures around it where people have to also find ways to please one another in these I don't know, it's these weird like social interactions to me because we don't know these people. We don't know each other.
Right.
And it's just so strange. It's like it's unlike any other human interaction. Like just think about your interactions with any customer service of any giant corporation in the US. You don't know these people. Sometimes they're awesome. Like sometimes you can just feel like these people are at least they're faking the warmth and the kindness, right? And you're like, "I appreciate that." And then so many other times that is not the experience you get. But, regardless, it's is it not strange to you? I just feel like in general it's strange. You're just talking to this stranger that you've never met. You don't see them
Hmm.
either right now. I mean, we usually just are on the phone with them if we can get anyone on the phone, let alone, having to do chats where you don't even get to hear their voice. Um, it's strange. We don't know each other and we interact with so many people who we do not know. We get deliveries from our Amazon deliverer we don't even talk to anymore. We don't even talk to the people who deliver food to our door because they can just leave it at the door. So it's really interesting. I feel like because we're so separated in a lot of different ways and even though we're interacting we're still so separate, we don't get to know each other. It takes the human element out of it, and for me that's probably one of the issues that leads to the dehumanization of folks overall, and even the ability for us to like you know put our empathy aside or not have our empathy activated and basically make terrible decisions that put money over people.
Yeah. And then I feel like when it comes to perfectionism, like we want our corporations to be perfect all the time when they're making those decisions. And sometimes it doesn't work out that way, right? And it's like I get frustrated as somebody who herself, excuse me, boycotts things on my own and quietly. I understand like this whole, cancel culture thing, and I get it that we want everybody to be perfect all the time. But I kind of just
Mm,
want them to, I want to know that they're doing their best, right? Like I want to know
right.
that they're treating their employees well and they're treating their stakeholders well. And, you know, maybe they're also making a lot of money because the statistics show that they probably are making a lot of money by doing those things.
Mhm.
But it's the only thing we're hearing about, like the returns for their shareholders as opposed to how they're treating all their
Yeah.
stakeholders.
See, I mean, and I think that I would really, I think that's the issue. Like I was just kind of touching on is we don't know. We don't
Yep.
know. We only know the things that are gonna hit the headlines and that are sexy enough for to share. And as an employer who has like in my mind the best intentions, like wanting to put people first, wanting I always say I have a mission within a mission where I want, my folks that are working alongside me to be really healthy and well and even wealthy. Like I want the best for everyone that we are working with. But, what I learned in my work is that you have to show your work and you have to invite people in, like truly,
Hmm.
for them to really, really understand where you're coming from and why you're making the decisions you're making. And that's why, when I think about it on this large level, I mean, yes, I'm right with you. I'm criticizing people. I have no, I have no, leg to stand on when I'm saying this, but I do understand that we can't truly know, the ins and outs, the intricacies of someone's relationship with whatever the topic might be. Um, Unless we really knew more about them, and that's the thing again, is like, we're in this very strange time where it's like, we know so much and so little at the same time because you can't know the details and the inner workings of every corporation that you know something about. You can know a
Right.
headline. That's why headlines are so popular right now. That's why there's clickbait, right? Because it's just a matter of, like, you read that top line and you think you know everything about the situation. And the truth is we just don't. And I mean, I don't know that there's a good answer because, people should be held accountable. Corporations should be held accountable. I mean, I would say, obviously trust the people that are closest to it and the ones that are being impacted by it versus, just media folks who are trying to get you to click on things. But that's not easy either, right? Like, where do you go for that information? How do you really connect with those people? And that's why for me, like, everything has become more and more and more local and more,
Hmm.
intimate, like more everything that's closer to me are the things that I pay more attention to because in my mind, I'm never gonna know what, I don't know, like, I don't know, someone across the world is doing, really, like, I really don't know. And I never will find out because I will never be able to invest that amount of time and energy into connecting with those folks, right? And so for me, it's like the community that you live in is the one that you can have the most impact on. And so that's where I really try to get as much information as I can that, I don't know, that's from different sources, that's, from people actually being impacted, and all around together, like, again, none of us can be perfect, but just knowing that none of us can be perfect is a practice in empathy, right? And perhaps a
Hmm.
practice in understanding that when somebody is presenting in a way that's negative, to us, that we perceive it as negative, maybe that's an opportunity to practice radical empathy to say, I wonder what that person's going through, or what else, what their perspective is around this, or whatever. Because I think we're also in this place where we're very quick to judge. And as I'm saying it, I know I'm being hypocritical because I do it all the time. But it's okay because I want to challenge myself to know that humans are humans, and we can hold people accountable when they're making bad decisions, but I don't think we should ever throw anybody away, honestly. I mean, I know that there are people who, we would think are lost causes, but, people do change sometimes. And so even if they're doing the worst things or making the worst decisions, at this point in their lives, I mean, I'm sure all of us have made bad decisions at some point in our lives, and
And we're
we would
not our
want
worst
another
decisions.
chance. Exactly, we're
Yeah.
not our decisions, 100%. So that's my point is like that is really an exercise in radical empathy that I would need to challenge myself to do because when it comes to corporations, I have no empathy. I really don't, and it's probably bad because these are just people, and corporations are made up and companies are made up of a bunch of group of people, that changes. That's another thing that I've really understood, more so, in my recent experience, where it's just like, just because an organization, same name and all of that was one way, last year, it doesn't mean they're actually the same way this year because they could have entirely different people at the helm. And so it's kind of wild to think about all the dynamics of it all. But at the end of the day, we're demanding perfection from others and ourselves, and it could be toxic. It could be something that's not, good for us or society. So I think we challenge it every time to make sure that, we're doing the right thing and that we're thorough.
Yeah, it made me think if we're willing to allow ourselves the grace to know that we're doing our best, shouldn't
Mhm.
we extend that to not only other people, but to entities like corporations as well, right? Like, are they doing the best? Are we just seeing a headline because it is clickbait as opposed to, hey, they messed up this one time. This is what this headline is. But 99% of their work is actually pretty darn good.
Mm.
And are we
Yeah.
extending that grace to ourselves as well, right? Like, hey, my baseboards were not as clean as they should be, but you know what? 99.9% of everything else was.
Mhm. Yeah, and I don't know, it made me think of so many things when you said, about corporations, um, messing up once because, it makes me think about how, like, there's this whole thing now of like PR control. and like giving people enough to make them think, this is better now. Um, and that's the hard part for me. It's like we don't really know genuinely where people are coming from when they're part of these big organizations, unfortunately. Even with governments, it's like people mess up and then they're like, well, this is what we're doing to fix it, or, this person's being fired or impeached or investigated or whatever. Like we have all kinds of things that we do to make ourselves feel better when somebody does something wrong. But I guess at the end of the day, we all have to decide what's sufficient for our own judgment, I suppose. But truly, I think that the part that we can challenge ourselves on is, just writing people off forever and
Yeah.
saying like, nope, you messed up, you're dead to me, type of thing. I think that is the place where so many of us struggle because we've been so hurt.
Hmm.
And we know that there's so much pain and suffering that's been caused by people making, quote unquote mistakes or making really bad choices, right? And so I get it. I'm in this struggle with all of us. um, but I do think that is the one thing that I could probably take away to practice on is, um, understanding that there's a difference in somebody making bad choices and being a bad person forever.
Yeah, and I think that applies to ourselves, right? Like, if we say try something new and we
Mm,
don't succeed at it, like, I think a lot of us would be like, oh, not ever doing that again. And
mm,
maybe it's just like, hey, I need to try it at a different angle. Or maybe I need to accept the fact that I want to play the sport for fun and not professionally.
yes, yes, yes. And that's I love that you're taking it there because that's the practical thing for our self-talk that has really helped me anyways. Even little things, like for example, in my work at least, and a lot of people's work, you have to develop a lot of like budgets and, these documents that say what you're doing, your plan, all kinds of different planning documents that you have to present to people and get their feedback on and all of that. And I used to spend, just endless time, even doing like bits of like graphic design and formatting and all of these things to be perfect. I wanted everything to look so perfect. And even spacing is still a thing I get a little OCD about. But the main
Don't we
thing,
all?
my main point being that there have been little things that have helped me kind of get over the hump because what I realized the most, the thing that's brought me the most, like my results is doing and moving past the things that I would usually have really hung me up. And that's really perfectionism, like I wouldn't think about it as that. I would just think like, oh, it has to be this way, and I have to do this and it has to do this. And that really is perfectionism talk. And so it would hold me back to the point where, that meeting would never happen, or, this would never get presented, or I would just hold on to it too long or whatever. And the thing that helped me push through that was language actually, and conceptualizing things a little bit differently, just little things like instead of calling it the budget, calling it a working budget. That's it. Like instead of calling it a plan, calling it a working plan, calling it whatever you have to call it. Maybe it's your first draft, maybe it's a rough draft, maybe it's a whatever makes you feel comfortable, sharing it with people. Maybe it's, an initial plan or whatever it has to be. But for me, I put working in front of everything now. I'm like, oh yeah, this is our working document, this is our working plan, this is our working budget, this is our working discussion. Like, I mean, everything is a work in progress, and that's okay because I'm inviting collaboration. I'm inviting change. I'm inviting, new iterations.
And it's also reality because
Hmm.
no entity and no person makes one decision and then sticks with it for life. Maybe the
Right.
priest, but I don't even know about that. But you know what I'm saying, right? Like everything adapts. And I guess even the church adapts when it comes to priests. So, you
Yep.
know, it all adapts.
Yep. It's true. And we have to allow ourselves that space for adaptation and change and changing our minds. And, I think it's the idea that perfectionism is good versus, you know, growth is good. That
Yeah.
philosophy kind of changes. Everything kind of moves from that centered space, because if perfectionism is good, then that means there's only one answer and you already
Yep.
know what it is, you know? But if growth is good, it literally means you don't exactly know what it's going to be in the end, or if there is an end, right? Like, I just think about like a tree. A tree doesn't say like, "Oh, I grew that branch, I'm done." You know, like it just keeps growing and you don't know where it's
Yeah.
going to grow next year, where it's going to bud next year, or which even direction it's going to grow in primarily. You know, I mean, trees could grow for decades and it could be different every decade. And that's the way that I think about us and our lives in general. It's like, you know, how you talked about the absurdity of people like putting age numbers to what they're going to do to different milestones in their life. For me, it's
Oh,
like I'm just excited thinking about like my different eras in life and my different phases or chapters or whatever you want to call it,
yeah.
right? And it's like if you think about it that way, then there is no milestone standard of, you
Hmm.
know, what people expect you to be or do at a certain point in life. It's really like, oh, curiosity. Oh, I wonder what's next. I wonder what's next in my life story. You know, I wonder what chapter is coming up. I wonder what era I'm going to be entering into, or, you know, like what era am I in right now, or what era do I want to be in? You know, like that. I think just naming that out loud and even like kind of proclaiming it sometimes, right? Like this is what I'm doing right now. This is what I'm about. This is my phase that I want to experience in life. Um, just knowing that it doesn't have to be defined by others, and it doesn't have to
Hmm.
be measured by others. But it's really a matter of like you wanting to and giving yourself permission, really, you know, to be free enough to choose what you're going to experience in your life at any given time, and not comparing. Basically, really, comparison is the, you know, theft of all joy, they say, or what have you. And I mean, I really think that's true, actually,
It is
because
absolutely
everything that
true.
you talked about before with social media and all of that, like, you're just comparing. And that's, I literally, I can't even be on social media that long, unless I'm curating it in a way that really helps me, because you just start to compare everything, like, oh, that person has this, why don't I have that? This person looks like that, how come I don't look like that? I mean, it's just, you just goes on, you know. And so you know, I think leaning into that liberation, for me anyways, has been really exciting. And I hope it will be something that other people experience, of just, you know, choosing to be free in a way where where you really reflect on what would make you feel great in your life right now, what would make you be excited to be alive right now, and to choose that despite what other people would think about it, frankly. Yeah.
Oh my God, it's not like the death knell for anything, what other people think. But
Mhm.
the liberation that comes in not caring what other people think,
Mm.
so great.
I
And
can't
even when
wait
I
to
think,
be in that era. I always say I can't wait till I'm old where I don't give any any cares of what people think. That's, I think I'm so jealous of older people who have that. It's amazing.
I even think reflecting on my, you know, obsessive need for perfection while my mom was here, it had nothing to do with her or any
Mhm.
expectations that she placed upon
Mm.
me. It was all about me thinking I needed to be that way.
Yeah.
And I don't think that way around other people, but for her, I did. And I'm working on
Interesting.
it. But we've all got to give ourselves some grace and recognize it when it's happening, right? Like whether it is thinking that we have to be like other people because they've accomplished certain things. We know what for every one person who is the way that you think you want to be, there are tens of thousands that did it totally different and they're
Mm.
all thriving.
Yes. Yes.
And we don't think about that, right? Like we think about, oh, well, this person founded a company by the age of 35 and retired by the age of 41. Uh, not realistic. Most entrepreneurs are in their 50s and 60s when they reach their pinnacle,
Hmm.
not what you would think if you read a newspaper.
Hmm. I love that point of also like perspective sharing too, because
Right?
because you don't, I mean, one of my favorite things in law school actually, because I was so brand new to this whole world of law and professionalism, frankly, I was obsessed with, just learning everyone's story. I was just so interested. I'm like, "Wait, this is what you do. How did you get there? How did you get there? How did you get to where you are?" And I wanted to know because I had no idea. Like, I had no like, what is the
Yeah.
path? Like, I got to law school and I was like, "That's it. That's all that I know to do." Like, I got to law school. Now what? Like, what the hell comes after that? And so I was just really, really interested in everyone's story. And what really struck me about hearing so many stories was that everyone had gotten to an incredible place. Like, I was jealous of all of them. I wanted to be all of them, right? I didn't have one thing that was like I was obsessed with or had to have. I thought it was just so cool that they were doing all these different things. And they all got to that cool, interesting life with an entirely different path, and the path made no sense usually. It was like,
Yep.
"Oh, I did this for a minute, and then, a friend of mine told me about this opportunity, and then that turned to this, and then, like, left turn, and then behold, like, all the way back to the beginning or somewhere completely very different, and it was just so fascinating to me where I was just like, "Okay, there's not really rhyme or reason in my mind," after assessing all of these. And so it really gave me permission to kind of explore and to just like let it flow and to go through my career just almost experimenting actually and like taking opportunities that sounded interesting and then just seeing where they led and seeing who I met. And frankly, I think that really is part of the key is that you meet people that you might not expect to meet, that you don't know where they're going to go next or what they're going to do next or where they're going to be, what position they're going to be in. And you just there's literally no predicting it. That's the other thing is like there's no way to predict it except for, these people who are on the perfectionism tip and do one track and then they stay to it. But most people don't do that actually.
Nope.
I mostly like everyone that I had really talked to, had just done this really interesting winding road. And I think the things that I picked up from that are that, you know, you don't have to train your whole life in one direction to end up where you want to be. That was one thing that really helped me understand that, like, oh, I should have done this or I should have done that. No, you are creating and like this unique set of experiences in yourself that is actually going to be perfect for some unique experience in the future. And so for me, it became like, well, again, there's no perfect. There's just like something perfect for me because I'm doing the things that I genuinely care about and that I genuinely am interested about and are interested in. And when they come together, those experiences are gonna actually lead me into something again that I care about and that I'm interested in. So that helped me anyways to understand that there really is no perfect path, to take. It's just everyone kind of has their own unique path, and that's the interesting thing about seeing where it's going to lead.
And what I love about your storytelling was that it was so organic, right? It seemed
Yeah.
organic for all these people to have
Mhm.
naturally
Mhm.
met these people and things developed organically, as opposed to this. I
Forced.
think at least what
Yeah.
I was taught through my career, different career paths, was that, one must network for this number of hours per week or
Really?
per month. Yeah, and I'm just like,
We have such different
what?
life experiences.
Well,
That's so fun.
politics in the early 2000s where it was just like, this is how this works. And I'm like, and of
Mm.
course, anytime somebody says that, I'm like, dramatic eye roll. No, this is how you're doing it. This is not actually
Yes.
how it works.
Yes, that's another thing that's helped me when people tell you things, they're telling you about themselves, not the way that things are.
Right?
Like, just knowing that is really helpful. You're like, "Okay, okay, yeah."
So, to all those young career people out there, and not even just young, to any career person out there, uh, just let it happen organically, right? Like, do what feels good to you and you are
Mhm.
able to do. It is doing your best, not what, you know, Joe Schmo next to you is doing, because Joe Schmo may or may not know what he's doing. Who
Right.
knows? None of your business. That's for
And that
him.
person's not you, so you're gonna have different
Yeah.
experiences, period.
Yeah. Like, something that I've gotten into recently working in my field is lots of people in politics dress very conservatively on both sides of the aisle.
Mhm.
And I have gotten to the point where I decided that I don't want to look like I'm there from the IRS to do somebody's taxes. And so that's how I'm dressing, because I don't want to look like everybody else. One, two, who made up these rules
Yeah.
about, like, this is how the perfect political operative should look? But if you
Mhm.
check out, you know, cable news, they all look the same.
Yeah.
The
I love
colors
that you bring that
change,
up though. Yeah. They change,
but
but they are mostly the same. And they change
they
together when
are.
they do change too, right? Because
Yeah.
oh, everyone's wearing a blue navy suit now, and so, okay, everyone buy one. You know, like it's always a thing.
Right, or how dramatic it was when women were allowed to just wear dresses as opposed to suits. Like,
Mhm.
huh? What? Like,
Yes.
there are many other options out there in the world, people.
It's interesting though, because fashion is really kind of powerful in a way. It says a lot. And just as you were talking about that, I was thinking in my mind like why people do it. Like why do people dress a certain way? What informs their choices? And mostly people are actually trying to convey something about themselves. They're trying to convey, I'm a serious, business person, or I'm a serious politician, or, I'm serious, take me seriously type of thing.
Hmm.
Or something else, right? And it's just really interesting because when I see people doing that, where they are, they might think that they're looking like a serious politician person or what have you. I always think like, I don't know. I just always think, frankly, my perception is like, a conformity. Like you are trying to
Yeah.
conform, you're trying to belong, you're longing for belonging, if you will. And you're trying to be accepted by your peer group. And I always find and so, I'm saying that out loud because there's all these subtle signals that we send to each other and that we think we're sending with one thing, but somebody might perceive it as differently, and probably not too far off the mark. The other thing is just maybe, I mean, there was always that saying of like dress for the job you want. And
Oh, I
I don't
remember that one.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes there is power in that, frankly. I mean, it's just interesting. Like people, human beings are they're interesting creatures, and we judge people by how they look. Hard stop. That's just a fact. And so but what we perceive can be really interesting. So like for me, I think about like people like I don't know why I'm thinking of like Richard Branson or like just like these billionaires who like they don't
Hmm.
dress like everyone else. Like they're not trying to conform. They've already gone
Yeah.
way past that, and they have their own style and their own perspective and their own view. Not to glorify billionaires, but it's just as an example. It's like there are people who are trying to conform, and then there are people who are transcending, right, or just actually being themselves. And for me, that's the kind of thing that I pick up anyways, where I'm like, yes, there's an extent to where like you want to portray to somebody something, um to show who you are in this workplace setting, but I wish, I guess, more so that people could actually just be themselves more and just express
Right. Like, and I think
who they
if
are
more
through
people were
fashion.
just like
Hmm.
themselves and their best selves, oh, I think the world just might like get along a little better, right? Like, I think this
Hmm.
perfectionism kind of
Mm.
creates some loggerheads and creates that like tension or
Mhm.
frustration or however it might manifest for a person.
Well, even
That,
conformity. Yeah.
yeah, because I mean, at the heart of it, does everybody really want to conform? I
Right.
don't think so.
Right.
At least I like to think not. I don't think so. No.
No.
So maybe the moral of the story is that we just do our best and we allow others to do their best as well,
Yeah.
right?
And
As
be
opposed
true
to
to
expect,
ourselves, right? Because, yeah.
yeah. And it just made me think of all these people out in the world who think that what is best for them is
Hmm.
best for others, right? And I don't
Hmm.
believe that's true. I think it's an individual choice on what's best for you because my
Yeah,
expectations for me, I would not place upon anybody else.
exactly. And it's so interesting how we assume that people are putting expectations on us too. I think that's where perfectionism really like, boils over because you're just like, what do they want me to do? What are they expecting from me? What do they want to see? What do they need? Like and that's where perfectionism really kind of takes hold in our minds and bodies. I want to theorize. Um and
That kind of
so
reminds me of like
mhm.
Perfectionism is a horror movie, right? Like when you said that perfectionist take hold, I like had this like Freddy Krueger standing behind you kind of situation going on.
Seeping in to your
Yeah,
body. But I mean, it kind of is. It kind of is a horror
yeah.
story, right? Because I mean, at the end of the day, when you're trying to like do everything to please other people and be perfect for them, and you've forgotten about yourself
You,
and who you
yeah,
truly are and what you want out of your very precious and, limited lifetime. I mean, it is a horror story. You might look up one
hmm
day and realize you've wasted your whole life trying to please other people who are never going to be pleased, period. And even if they were pleased, if you're not pleased, what real satisfaction is that, you know? I heard of a celebrity say once, like, I wish everybody would be rich and famous, just get it out of the way so that they would know that, like, that's not happiness. Because they're like everyone is trying to do this. They're chasing after this thing. And for me that means like all of the things that we see on social media, like, the quote unquote perfect body, house, family, money, every situation, you could put on there where we're being taught and socialized and pressured, to reach this arbitrary really level of perfectionism or success, if you will, according to society. And at the end of the day, you could accumulate all of that stuff, right? You could have every bit of it and still be terribly, terribly unhappy,
and
because you never
wager
really
to,
connected with yourself.
I would wager to guess that most of them are.
Right, right. Unfortunately, we see that, right? And so and so that just tells me and I tell most of the people who are always, externalizing so many things like, oh, this person thinks this of me, this person doesn't like me. I'm like, look the other way. Look
Yeah.
internally. Because if you do
Yes.
this internal work first and you know who you want you to be,
hmm
everything else just falls away. It really just it's not even hard. It's not even like, oh, I wish I could find a way to like not care. You just find that you care a lot about what you expect from you and who you want you to be, right? And when you
hmm
have that deep connection, and you're seeking that deep connection even, the rest of it almost becomes irrelevant because it's like, oh, this person in the beauty salon said X, Y, and Z about me. And you're like, and that has no bearing on my, like, big philosophical plan for my being. Like, like it just becomes completely irrelevant. It becomes so small, it just becomes so,
Yeah.
so small. And so that's where I like to remind myself to go. I'm not perfect again and by any means, even in that self exploration, and no one can be, but if we
Nor
keep
should we expect to be.
nor should we expect to be, and or nor should we want to be. Again,
Yeah.
for me, it's this is the human experience, and it's not perfect. It's messy as fuck, frankly, and
And
and you
that's
have to go through
great.
it all, and it's great
Yeah.
because that is the human experience. Like, we're not having a different kind of experience, we're having a human experience, and part of that, maybe the most fulfilling part is to just really truly get to know yourself and determine what you want this life to be, what you want this human experience to be, and do it without
Yeah.
apologies.
And that is how one avoids Freddy Krueger popping up often in Tessa's mind.
Yes, you go away. I love it.
So I think our takeaway here is avoid Freddy Krueger and just do your best for you because
Absolutely.
nobody else really cares either, right? Like even those
They
people who
really
are giving you
don't.
opinions, they don't really care. Even
No,
if
they're
they are
probably
your loved
projecting.
ones, yes. Even those people closest to you, it's
Mhm.
their view, not yours, as you said.
Absolutely, and they got their own life to live, so let them make all
Yeah,
of those decisions and apply all that advice to their life, and then you
yeah.
can determine what you wanna apply and what you wanna do and what choices you wanna make for your life, and that's fair.
And that's good. And that is something that has always, I think, uplifted me when I realized that we can all just adapt, or I could just adapt. You know what? No matter what happens, I can adapt.
Yes, you have that power, we all have that power, actually.
And that
You have
is
to tap into it.
liberating.
Yes, yes, and makes you unafraid to move forward even if you don't know what's gonna happen.
And so that on our path to world domination for good, it is just imagine us all being the best versions of ourselves for ourselves without
Mm,
any expectations of perfectionism, just our
yes.
best selves.
For ourselves. I love it. I love it.
Yes.
Let's go. Let's do it.
I'm game. Let's go. And as always, thank you all for spending some time with us and listening to us figure everything out and find ways to uplift ourselves because I know I feel uplifted every time we talk. And I hope y'all do as well.
Yes. Stay wonderful, stay true, stay uplifted. We love you. Take care.